the realization of what is hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. That's how St. Paul describes what faith is. It's one of those things we probably have a difficult time putting our finger exactly on what or how it comes to be. But we do have a pretty good sense of knowing it and feeling it. Pope Francis had some comments about it recently. When we come to understand what it is that we've been given is all gift, then our beliefs take on a whole new and deeper meaning. Faith is a gift from God, something beyond reason, but this unseen force. It's the foundation, it's the basis for what we believe, and oftentimes how we act. It's what millions of peoples over the centuries have come to believe as well. Faith is more than just believing that God exists. And after all, at the beginning of the Gospels, when Jesus was tempted in the desert, we know the devil believed that there was a God. He didn't necessarily understand what God had promised. And he ignored the promises of God's love and mercy. He ignored the trust and the assurance that we can feel when we're in difficult times, when we're put to a challenge. Faith transforms us, it saves us. When the world around us tells us one thing, makes suggestions to us about how we're supposed to act, our faith, our conscience will sometimes tell us something different, to trust in God's promise, to follow a course of mercy, of compassion. We might give food, money to the poor because Jesus showed us how to do it out of love. We may bite our tongue, avoid gossiping, because Jesus set that example for us. We make choices not because they make us feel good, because they're easy. We do it out of faith. We recognize the limits of what we can do and try to find that balance to share God's love. Those without faith, they're acting as if the world is theirs for the taking. A self-interest at heart. Accumulating possessions like we heard about in last week's gospel. Maybe even making those same donations to the poor and less fortunate, but doing it because it makes them feel good. Missing out on that aspect of sharing God's love, knowing what the other person needs and wants. As we hear in this week's gospel, with faith, we live a life of preparation, of hope. Be ready, for the Son of Man may come at any time. Be prepared to meet God, to meet love itself. So we prepare ourselves in this life, sharing God's love, knowing that we will be in the fulfillment of love with Him. We don't serve our own needs of feeling good trying to look good for others. St. Paul, in our second reading, reminds us about the story of Abraham in the Old Testament, the father of faith. It all started with Abraham. He and his wife hadn't had any children. God comes to them in their old age and asks them to travel to a far-off land to help establish a new nation. And they obey unquestionably. He's the father of faith, because Abraham shows us what a man of peace looks like as he helps others try to settle disputes. Who's merciful. He bargained with God to save the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. He was welcoming and kind to the angels that showed up unannounced, compassionate, rescuing Lot and his family, and trusting when he and Sarah were in an old age. They finally did have a child, and they passed that faith onto him, passed it onto his children, and look where we are today. Abraham listened when God called, he acted, and he trusted when God was giving him these off-the-wall, strange instructions. All the attributes of faith. Abraham's one example for us. I was looking at the Mass calendar for the month of August. Realized there's a lot of other saints here this month that we celebrate as well. Men and women of deep faith that show us perseverance and trust. This past week, we celebrated St. John Vianney, the Curé of Ars, parish in France. St. John Vianney is the patron saint of parish priests. He had a very difficult time with his studies, although he felt that calling to be a priest. He found that he just wasn't prepared for studies in Latin, but persevered. He saw that vision of being a priest, and after a long battle with the books, he was ordained. Known for his long hours in the confessional, compassionate with people, and turned the parish of Ars into a faith-filled parish. St. Dominic, the founder of the Dominican religious order, patron of one of our high schools, the Order of Preachers, an order that keeps us focused on a life where God and prayer is at the center of our life. St. Lawrence. Now, St. Lawrence, I got a little bit of a kinship with him. So St. Lawrence was a deacon. He was also sort of the business manager for his parish, in charge of the money matters. And back when the Romans were persecuting the Christians, he realized they were going to be coming in short order, gave away the wealth of the church to the poor so that the Romans wouldn't get it. He also had a sarcastic tone to him, which again, kind of why I find a kinship with him. When questioned by the Romans about where the church wealth was, he gathered the blind, the lame, the poor, the oppressed, the orphaned and the widows, and brought them to the Roman ruler and said, here is the wealth of the church. Got him into a little bit of trouble. He was sentenced to death, to be burned at the stake. And as the fire consumed him, legend has it, he made a final, famous last remark. Turn me over, I'm done on this side. We also celebrate St. Augustine and also St. Monica, his mother. Monica persevered for many years of prayer, praying for her son's conversion. In his young years, Augustine, he enjoyed the good life. He enjoyed the wealth that he had inherited from his father. And Monica's persistence paid off. Augustine is now known as one of the great church fathers. And St. Monica is our patron saint of mothers for her perseverance in prayer. Good examples, men and women of faith, holiness, trust in God. We all want successful and fulfilled lives. And God guides us. He gives us insight to understand true success. We listen and we trust. Abraham, the saints, our Lord, gave himself to us, all models of faith and trusting in the unseen, leading them through difficult challenges. Today's readings ask us to consider a few things ourselves, to reflect on what are we being asked to do in our lives. Are we listening and paying attention to that unseen voice whispering in our ears? And which one of us here is being asked to do what seems totally unrealistic, impossible at times? Well, in a way, each of us is asked to do that at one time or another. And we're reminded today of the special gift we're given of faith, to trust. So we prepare our hearts, we prepare our minds, we prepare ourselves, our whole selves. We listen, and we allow our faith to guide us.